Hello, how are you all? I hope you're doing well. Okay, this is pretty funny. CNN's Brian Stelter is one of many on CNN who have complained that people on the internet, podcasters, YouTubers, are actually getting more viewers than they are. Instead of looking inward and self-reflecting, they blame it on everyone else. Typical super lefty behavior. So Brian Stelter, by the way, his viewership is still higher than it was pre-Trump, but post-Trump has gone down. Their viewership has gone down 72%, which is absolutely wild. And again, instead of looking inward, they blame it on everyone else, and they just can't understand why people on the internet get more viewers than they do. Well, Joe Rogan had something to say about this, and this is pretty funny. He said, CNN is effing terrible. And he said their presenters are not real humans. Well, we all know this. They are complete and utter propaganda. You know, the thing about Fox News, and you can say a lot of Fox News is propaganda as well, but I will say this, at least Fox is open, I think, in a lot of instances, maybe not everyone, but they're open about the fact that they do point of view journalism. CNN is pure propaganda. There's several types of journalism. There's objective journalism, where you just provide the facts, you get statements from both sides, you give both sides of the information, and no one knows where you actually stand on the matter. And then there's point of view journalism, where again, you provide both sides and you give your point of view and your commentary or what you believe in on top of that, but you're always open that that is your point of view. That is not what CNN does. They repeatedly lie about their stories, and that's why no one watches them anymore. And unfortunately, this is dangerous because they do present themselves as sort of the middle of the line, your trusted news source. And there are people that actually watch CNN and actually think that they are a trusted news source, which is scary. And I always tell people, like, when you watch news, don't just watch one news source. Don't just watch one story. Like, get lots of information, look at lots of different perspectives on that news story and form your own opinion. And if I say something without throwing up where I'm getting it from, I say look it up yourselves. Like, everything I say, I just like to bring up news stories that I think are interesting and talk about them, but everything I say, I'm always like, encourage you, look at it yourself also and form your opinion. Don't ever get your news from one source. That is so dangerous, and that is how we become so polarized. And people know that about CNN. You can't trust them. Even before I sort of switched over or had my walk away, I stopped watching CNN a long time ago. It was, I think, around the Boston bombing and around Michael Brown is when I started to see through what they were actually doing. But let's look at this more. Appearing on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast Thursday, the presenter attacked a segment on CNN which presenters had complained that YouTubers were drawing in more viewers than their television shows. So that's basically what happened, and Brian Stelter was one of those people. So Joe Rogan continued to say they don't even understand the way we're describing it. They're describing it as if they're entitled to viewers. They're saying there are people on the YouTube right now that get more viewers than this show. This is because the market has spoken and your show is effing terrible. Well, Brian Stelter's show keeps slipping and slipping and slipping in the ratings. He's the worst. So that's, he had Kyle Kalinske on his show, and that's what they were having this conversation about. So is Don Lemon, they're saying. It's the same thing. Everyone knows they're not real. They're not real humans. We also know this with the exposés in Project Veritas, where one of the head people in CNN is actually admitting that they purposefully fearmonger and push things to get viewers, to get views. If it bleeds, it leads. And they even admitted that their next thing was going to be climate change. So get ready for that. Joe Rogan continued to say they obviously are being told a certain amount of what to do, and maybe he'd be an interesting guy if he had his own show, he had his own podcast, and he could rely on his personality and be himself. I don't know. We know this too. The reporters or journalists, whatever you want to call them, talking heads, I don't know. The people on CNN are told the direction that they have to go in. They are told what to say and what to do. And this is why, exactly what Joe Rogan says, they are not interesting. I want to hear your point of view. I want to hear what you have to say. Or if you can't do that, if you're just presenting the news, then just present the news and stop lying. But they will mold and fit whatever the story is or whatever the news is to fit whatever narrative they are told to push. And yes, you can say that other news organizations are guilty of this as well, and a lot of them are, but I would say CNN is one of just the absolute worst, and people know that. They're starting to wake up to it. Anyway, let me know what you think about that. And that's why people on the internet are getting more viewers, because you don't have to worry about being behind a network and having to mold yourself and fit to a certain narrative. Speaking of Project Veritas, again, you had the girl from Fox, this was a local station, who came out and was secretly recording her bosses because she was being told she was going out and interviewing people and wasn't allowed to give the whole interview because the news station didn't like the narrative or didn't like what the person actually said, even though that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to give the viewer what the person was actually saying. They didn't like what that person said, so they had to cut that part out. And that's when she started having a crisis of conscience and saying, I can't do this anymore. This is not fair to the people. This is not fair to our viewers to be giving them our idea of what the truth should be. And this is what's happening with a lot of major news stations, especially CNN. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about that. Bye.